3 o'clock is the hour that supposedly Christopher Wray and Rod Rosenstein have been commanded to come to the White House to get a spanking, I think. So I think we're going to be seeing some major evening news tonight. I don't know if Rod Rosenstein's going to be fired, if that's going to be the news. I'd like to see President Trump going over to the Department of Justice and the FBI with the U.S. Marshals and go in with, with orders to remove what the House Intelligence Committee wants. Otherwise, anybody standing in the way is going to be let out in handcuffs.
That's right. Let's be clear. I should have led the show with this. Thank God you're here. The president can declassify anything he wants. And for months, they won't give Nunes any of this stuff. So, I mean, I agree. The fact that they're being summoned as we speak, this is historic. They're about to give an ultimatum like Giuliani. He's going to say, listen, I'm going to let you skate like Napoleon to Alba, but you guys got to run the white flag up or I'm going to drop the hammer on you.
Yeah, I think he is going to drop the hammer. And I think that this is what Sundance at conservative Treehouse, he's been a contrarian on this. He's been saying that Sessions and Trump have been hanging back, letting the coup plotters basically hang themselves and dig themselves in deeper. And
that's why Sessions wouldn't touch anything and recuse himself.
I think that yeah, exactly. That Sessions won't even make a statement because anything that he said would be perceived as politicizing the outcome. So when the IG report comes, it might turn out that Huber from Utah is a white hat, even though he was a Democrat appointee. He might be a white hat. And over at Conservative Treehouse, that's been the operating thesis, is that when the IG drops, the indictments are going to drop, that they've been working together. And it's going to be a real tidal wave. And unlike in 1974 with Watergate, when the Republicans basically told Nixon to hang it up, the Democrats are basically deciding to stay in this kamikaze plane on fire right into the ground, which is great because I think they could be wiped out in the midterm.
I was about to say, I think the tide has turned. All the numbers, all the facts show it. They've been caught lying, saying there was no spying. Now the FBI admits it happened. They can't recover from this. This is. But let's not be too confident. I think we're in prime false flag zone now. I think
definitely. Yeah, where's Joseph Mifsud? I think he's probably at the bottom of the Wicomico River, around where Colby had a canoe accident. That he hasn't been seen in months. And we know John Brennan. He's a Stalinist. He voted communist in '76, and joined the CIA in 1980, which is amazing. And then rose through the ranks, and a Marxist named Barack Obama appointed him to be the head of the entire Central Intelligence Agency, a communist to me. I mean, I never saw a conversion. I never saw him, write a paper saying how he regretted being a communist.
Well, all of his actions have been to sell us out to China, so there you go.
And Islam.
I've talked to folks that have confirmed they thought it was a fake conversion just to get the Saudis on board. No, he converted to Islam.
Sure. And, this event last Friday with Nunes, he had a huge, really blockbuster interview with Maria Bartiromo. When it counts, that woman has been stellar. I mean, she has got some nerve and guts. Even though she's on Fox Business News, when it counts, she's in the white hat corner, you can tell. And Nunes said that he didn't go over to the Department of Justice on Friday because he suspected he was being set up. And it's brilliant. I caught a little bit of Rush earlier, and other people are talking about it. If he had gone over to the DOJ to get, dragged around the pole again over looking at the scope memo, these articles that dropped in the Washington Post and the New York Times were all timed. If they would have followed the Nunes visit to the Department of Justice, then Nunes would have been cast as the leaker who outed our wonderful, brave informant, Stephen Halper, and Devin Nunes needs to be fired for good. So either Devin Nunes has ESP, which is certainly possible. I mean, he's after being run around the bushes so many times, he's probably very skeptical, obviously. But I'll bet there's some white hats inside of DOJ.
Oh, of course. It's like William Benny when they were trying to set him up. had somebody drop an envelope off at his house with all the evidence. I mean, that's why the globalists are in so much trouble, is that I'd say there's a good, what, 50%'s probably on the fence, just sitting back wanting their paycheck. And then the other, it's 25 evil, 25 good. Or, I mean, all I know is we know everything they're up to.
Yeah, and it's clear we do. And we've known for quite a while. It's just, you know, it's also pretty amazing to me what a bunch of pansies they are. Even on Fox News, they still won't say the word Stephen Halper. I saw Roger Stone I think it was over the weekend, but he was on, no, it was Friday night, I think, Thursday or Friday night. He was on with Laura Ingraham, and he dropped the name, and I think she repeated it. And it was great because Roger also dropped that, yeah, as I said on InfoWars the other day, you know, which was a completely gratuitous plug that I was like cheering when he said that. That was great. You know, right on Fox News, you know, saying the unsayable. Stephen Halper and InfoWars all in the same paragraph.
Exactly.
Yeah, but this is quite a day. This is a real day for history, and I've actually prepared something that it's probably going to take me a full segment to give this little.
I'm out of here. I'm just sitting there eating my lunch, watching you and listening, my friend. Take over.
You bet. Thanks a lot. Well, we can do phone calls. I don't know how much time I have left in this segment because I'm going to need.
You have 1 minute, 30 seconds. So you can come back and do a nice 10-minute segment and have another 10 minutes for calls.
That's perfect. Yeah, what a time to be alive, because we've been watching this for the last year and a half playing out. We've known what was happening, but we've been watching these deep state operatives clinging to their plan, even though Hillary lost. The entire Crossfire Hurricane was predicated on Hillary wins, and we cover the whole thing up. Brennan stays at CIA, Lynch stays at DOJ. You know, we'll win the Congress, and nothing will ever come of this. What a shock it must have been for them when Trump actually won. And what's going to come out now is going to be shocking. And I'm so gratified to see all of these Democrats, with very few exceptions, you know, just chaining themselves to the flaming wreckage of this plot, because they are going to all crash into the mountain together, and there's going to be no saving them. In fact, if I was a Republican, I'd be asking any Democrat now, do you denounce now these deep state plots against the president?
That is genius. I'm going to steal that. Exactly. It's time for Democrats to either say they're on this train or off it, and they're all going to sign on and go over the edge.
Yeah, down in flames. And it's much worse than spying, because they were using agents provocateurs to set people up. They were creating the illusion of collusion, and then they were leaking it to the media that there was collusion. So this is not only going to take the Democrats down, it's going to take the Democrat liberal media down.
Matt Bracken's on fire.
Is going to be nothing.
Matt, everybody tune in right now. Everybody spread the word. Matt's going to come out and lay it all out.
I have a few announcements, and then I've got a little talk I've already prepared. I just sort of have an outline of it. When I come on the show every other Monday, I usually put some of my books onto a Kindle free run so that they're a free download. Today, this book, Castigo Key, is free to download. It's the first of the novels that feature a new character. The new one is Red Cliffs, which is my very edgy counter-jihad novel, very unpolitically correct, something that you know, you'll never see advertised in mainstream media or even reviewed on what I call you know, Conservatism Inc. Those guys, you know, they're so far behind the curve. They consider me too far out in front. I'm always too far out in front. That's a problem when you're a novelist. By the time that reality catches up, I've already written another book that's still far out in front. And, you know, they'll look bad to review a book that's predicting today 15 years ago. So my novels just stand on their own reviews. I'm never going to be, you know, a mainstream household name, that's for sure. Anyway, today, as we watch this unfolding of the unraveling of the deep state coup, I'd like to sort of do a big picture analysis of where we are and what's really happening. And to do this, I've got to go back in time quite a bit. And in fact, I'm going to go all the way back to the 1700s. and then bring it all the way forward to today. You know, the biggest mistake I think that Americans made, I was a Cold Warrior. My military time was during Reagan, that era. And when the Cold War was over, we thought that we won. America was on top of the pile, communism was defeated, and we could coast. You know, maybe look for new enemies, take it easy, enjoy the peace dividend. And that was a huge, huge mistake, because in reality, we didn't win the Cold War per se. We defeated the Soviet Union economically, but we did not defeat the idea of Marxism, socialism, communism. The idea just went internal, it went underground, it made a metamorphosis into some more modern forms, but it didn't disappear. Our mistake was to equate communism and the USSR, thinking that if the USSR, if the Soviet Union has collapsed, therefore communism has collapsed. But in fact, that is not what happened. And our victory was a hollow victory. It was a chimeric victory. The USSR was really just a vehicle. You know, Lenin launched communism in the Soviet Union in 1917 because it was available. You know, it was a shell on the back of World War I that was weak, and his ideas could spread easily. He thought that when this revolution had succeeded in Russia, he would be able to use his Cheka, NKVD, what we now call KGB and now FSB, to foment revolutions country after country. That was his concept going into the 20s, but it didn't work. There was an Italian named Antonio Gramsci who was probably much more far-seeing than Lenin, and what he believed was that Western people loved their countries too much. They loved their religion. They loved their societies. And before the revolutions could succeed in the rest of the world, those countries had to be sabotaged from within. The people had to be cut off from their roots, from their history, from their love for their countries, from their love for their religions. And he called it the long march through the institutions. And that has succeeded wildly. So I sometimes I learn lessons from nature. You know, I love watching these nature shows. And one thing that came recently to me, I never even heard of this, but there's something out there called the parasitic or the parasitoid wasp. And there are thousands and thousands of species of these. And what these guys do is they don't fight for a living. They just inject their eggs right into a fat, dumb, and happy caterpillar. So I created a meme, and the USA is that fat, dumb, and happy caterpillar. And even though the wasp is dead, guess what? Guess where little communists are being produced now, like those little wasps coming out of the dying caterpillar. They're being created and born right here, right in our own country. All you've got to do is look at our universities to see how we're pumping out little communists. Now, communism had a brand name problem based on the fact that more than 100 million people were murdered by communists in the 20th century. So they had a PR problem, and all they did was rebrand. So you can say, forget whether we call it communism, socialism, cultural Marxism, neo-Marxism, it's all the exact same thing. And that's what we're facing now is this burgeoning effect of these little hatchlings coming out. They've been breeding inside, while on the outside we look like a nice healthy caterpillar rolling along, munching the leaves. Inside, we're producing the next generation of little communist wasps. And you can see it happening. So anyway, there are a lot of the tactics that we see these neo-Marxists using. You can, obviously, they've taken over academia. This was straight out of the Gramscian Frankfurt School playbook. They have completely, I think I saw where something like 98% of college commencement speeches are by ultra liberals slash, cultural Marxists. So they've absolutely won and dominated academia. Another thing that they do is they always are for open borders. Now they dress this up as social justice. Obviously, if you think of it logically, the math just doesn't work. 2 or 3 billion people would love to move to America, and that would be insane and would be our instant destruction if it happened. So why do these cultural Marxists, these neo-Marxists, want open borders? Because when third world people, not necessarily very intelligent, poor with lots of problems, when they move into our country, they not only will vote for whoever promises them the most, but they also require lots of government workers to tend them and manage and take care of them. So you can see what happens in California. That's the plan for the rest of the country. This is why the cultural Marxists hate the wall. You can strip away all of their terminology, whether they're liberal, whether they're Democrats, social justice warriors. They're Marxists. It's what they've always been. So what can we do about this? First of all, educate ourselves. And I've got 4 book recommendations. I wish that I could get everybody to read. And the first of them, not many people have heard of, but maybe it's the most important. And it's called Hope of the Wicked by Ted Flynn. And it was written before 9/11, so it pretty much is the history of Marxism up to 9/11. And it goes right back to the earliest times when the Enlightenment happened, and then man became divorced from God, and some men began to think, why don't we take over the role of God? The first guy that came up with this idea in a really cogent way was a man named Adam Weishaupt. And he lived in the 1700s. He came along around 10 years before Robespierre, and his lifespan also overlapped that of Karl Marx. But I was talking about the beginning of Marxism. This is really a secular religion. This is why we can't speak in terms of defeating it. Like in the Cold War, since we beat the Soviet Union, we've defeated communism, we can move on to the next thing. No, this is completely wrong. Going all the way back to Adam Weishaupt and the Illuminati, these guys, the Illuminists, influenced the French Jacobins, leading to the French Revolution. They also influenced Karl Marx. A lot of Marx's writings are taken straight from Weishaupt, straight from it. It's almost like Karl Marx cribbed from him. So in a sense, Adam Weishaupt plus Karl Marx are sort of the Muhammad of the secular religion known as Marxism. They're the originators, and this is an absolute religion to a vast majority of people. Or not maybe a vast majority of people, but certainly the most influential religious force of the last 200 years has been the secular religion of Marxism. You can see this, even the Pope today is a Marxist. There are pictures where he's being given a hammer and sickle, a cross hammer and sickle, and he's grinning. He is a Marxist for sure. So we can see that even within an institution like the Catholic Church, Marx is ascendant, which seems amazing, but it's true. So the next book on my list, probably most people here are familiar with it, Creature from Jekyll Island, is the foundation of the Federal Reserve System. This is sort of the deep state of bankers. This is the cabal that's really pulling the strings in Congress. The laws that are passed on the behalf of these bankers. Everybody's familiar, I hope, with Ed Griffin's Creature from Jekyll Island. The next book, American Betrayal, fabulous book by Diana West. This came out in 2013. It goes back to FDR and his desire to converge the United States and communism. He didn't come out and say that, but all of the advisors around him, he surrounded himself with communist agents such as Harry Hopkins, Harry Dexter White, uh, Alger Hiss, all of the leading people around FDR were basically working on behalf of the Soviet Union and communism. FDR dies, we win World War II, everybody considers him a great hero, but in many respects, he was a traitor. He was working to converge our free market system and a communist Soviet-style system. And even though we had hearings in the 50s and everybody's familiar with Joe McCarthy, in a sense, the communists were never defeated. They just burrowed deeper and deeper inside. You can see that this is true because in 1976, John Brennan votes for the communist candidate for president, Gus Hall. This is when people were being dragged off to gulags still. This was the height of the Cold War. In 1980, John Brennan joins the CIA. He admits on polygraph that he voted for a communist. Does he get thrown out? Do they tar and feather him? Do they beat him and chuck him onto the street? No, absolutely not. He eventually rises to become the head of the CIA. This is back to my parasitic wasp, the injecting these little incubi of Marxism within our body, and that's where we are today. The last book on the list is not that well known. It's See Something, Say Nothing by Phil Haney, and this is pretty current. This is post 9/11. This Islam and jihad expert is doing fantastic work within the Department of Homeland Security. He and everybody like him are purged when Obama comes in, and even before Obama, it began under Bush. They're purged and replaced with imams from the Muslim Brotherhood, front groups like CARE. So this subversion from within is continuing right to today. So it's no wonder that these deep state coup plotters have felt that they could just seize the reins of power, and it's not a wonder to me that we are where we are today, because the real power within this country is in the hands of these subversives, and I don't know what more we can do other than ensure that Trump doesn't get kicked out of office, vote for Republicans, hold your nose and vote for Republicans so that he can't be impeached. That's about all we can do. Otherwise, I don't see any hope for us. But today is a big day. Maybe Trump is going to fire Rod Rosenstein. We'll have to see what happens, but we need to support him. Now, I'm not sure if we have time for a caller, but I've finished my little chat, and I'd like to see number 3. Jay from San Francisco, are you on? Can I talk to Jay? Is Jay holding?
Hello.
Jay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was calling to ask you about the SES and how Trump could root those elements out of the government, which I think goes to your point about the subversives that are in our government. How could he do that? How is that possible?
I think that we need to bring this battle right out into the open and lance the boil, and then as these little bugs come out, we need to crush them one at a time, and we need to call them traitors. We shouldn't be polite. When the Soviet Union collapsed, there were no Nuremberg trials. It was just a nice, quiet. The Bushes were just, let's get along with Gorbachev. Let's not talk about the bad old days. We need to crush them. We need to drag them out and have trials. This to me is complete treason. Now, there's no communist conspiracy per se. So people say, Bracken, what are you talking about conspiracy? The Soviet Union was defeated. But this is an enemy subversive ideology. This is why James Comey called his book A Higher Loyalty. What he means is higher than the United States, higher than our Constitution, because his loyalty is to this global socialist new world order. And nationalists like Trump are retrograde throwbacks that need to be defeated by all means, including lying, running operations against the president. So I say, let's have this battle. Let's be ruthless. Let's call them traitors. Let's insist on trials and crush them as to the greatest extent possible. We can't just let them fly under the radar for another generation. like the traitors of the 1930s. They were never punished, except for the Rosenbergs and a few others like that. They need to be punished, at least humiliated, disgraced, and thrown out of normal society. Anyway, let's see. Vincent in Nevada, you've got a question about the Pope. I call him Pope
Yes.
Marx. Go ahead.
Well, and that goes to the heart of my question. I was actually hoping to talk to Alex earlier because I think there's an important guest that maybe you or Alex should have on. But the reality is he's not a pope. He's an anti-pope, along with many of the popes before him. And your analogy regarding the caterpillar is critical because these people have infiltrated the Catholic Church. They are not Catholic at all. This is part of something that was warned about by Our Lady of Fatima in October of 1917, immediately before Lenin came aboard. And the idea that I have for a guest, which I don't know if you or Alex would be willing to have, are two Benedictine monks. And what's interesting about these Benedictine monks is they operate a website called mostholyfamilymonastery.com. But the Order of St. Benedict, according to Catholic prophecy, states that his order will exist until the end of the world, and it'll play a very critical role in the final battle. What's interesting about these monks is that...
Yeah, we're running out of time. If you can find me on Twitter, Matt Bracken 48 on Twitter, and I'll look in notifications, or if you dig around for my public email, you might find it. But listen, it's interesting. The last pope didn't die. He didn't have dementia. He was thrown out in a Vatican Palace coup by leftist socialist cardinals. So yeah, this Marxist upswelling is in all of our institutions, even the Catholic Church. Thanks there, Vincent. I think we're going to a break now, and it's the top of the hour, so I'm not sure what the next plan is.